and welcome back to the Language Lounge. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about burnout. So the last video I made a week ago, I had gotten to lesson 7, most of the way through lesson 7, and between one week ago, and today, I've gotten to lesson 8, partway through lesson 8. I still have like 6-7 pages to go on lesson 8. So I thought that it would be a pertinent time to talk about burnout. So one of the things that happens with language learning, and from the research I've done, it's especially prevalent in Asian languages, from an English speaking perspective, is that it is really, really easy to get burnt out while studying the language. And so what happened, so there's two things that happened this week. One is that, yes, I had hit the point where I was a little bit burnt out. I've been studying every day. And so like sitting down and doing the actual like book studying was a little bit difficult for me this week, simply because of how much I've been doing. And so it was a little bit of a chore to get myself to want to sit down and do. Well, it's not that I didn't want to sit down and study, it's that it just became a chore to actually do the studying part. I wanted to learn Japanese, but it was just a chore to actually sit down and do like the book studying part of it. And that's also, that's partially my ADD kicking in. I did manage to keep myself going through. Yes, I didn't do that much in the actual book. Mostly what happened most days was that I was watching the videos on the Japanese from Zero channel. I was re-watching some of them to kind of solidify some of it in my head. And I'll keep doing that every once in a while. I'll probably do that tonight, actually. But the other thing that happened actually pertained to work. So I was working a lot this week because my store, so Anna and I both work retail, and my store was going through our annual inventory. Once a year, we have an external company that comes in and counts everything in the store. So I had to deal with that this week, which meant that all of the managers were coming down on everybody really hard about getting stuff done. So there was one day that I did a 10-hour shift, which means I was in the store for 11 hours with the hour lunch break. And then the next day, the actual inventory, I was there for 11 and a half hours. I got in at 6 a.m. and I got clocked out at about 5:30. And so that was kind of the norm this week. And so it was really hard for me to come home and want to sit down and do some studying in my Japanese book. I wanted to study the language, but like I was also just kind of, my brain was shot. I wanted to just sit down and watch Netflix and, just kind of veg for a while, which is for the most part what I did. And then, what I still did, there was one lunch period during the week that I did still come home and study, or no, 2 lunch breaks that I did come home and study out of the actual book. And then the other times would be I was studying before bed by rewatching some of the videos. So with all that being said, I kind of want to go for a little bit of some things that might help with burnout. And one of them is kind of some of what I've been doing is if you're, let's say like you're doing Japanese from Zero or something similar that has a kind of a complementary video component, then one of the things that I would suggest is going back and watching those videos, because then you're still studying and you're still learning and you're still getting that Japanese in, or German or whatever, in that context of learning, rather than just getting the language. And that can be super helpful. However, there are other things that you can do too. So in the case of Japanese, one of the things that I could do, and I have done a little bit, but haven't done a huge amount up to this point, is if you're getting burnt out, then you can go and watch some anime or Japanese dramas or whatever it is you like. One of the movies that I like to watch and I haven't watched in a while is Letters from Iwo Jima, which a lot of that is in Japanese. And so sitting down and watching something like that, watching, One Piece or One Punch Man or, something like that that's in Japanese, then you're getting the language, you're hearing it, and it'll help train your brain. So you're still getting that Japanese every day. It'll help train your brain to hear the language. Japanese podcasts are a fun thing to listen to. Like, I was listening to one for a while, no idea what it's called because I couldn't translate the title in my head or anything like that, but it was a lot of fun to listen to just because the people who were in the podcast, I heard I think 4 different voices in most of them, but I'm not entirely sure. But it was super fun to listen to. They were just bouncing off the walls all the time, and they were constantly laughing, and it kind of made me, want to learn the language more. So that was a fun thing to listen to, and that's kind of another idea, is to listen to podcasts as well. So you can watch some anime or some dramas, listen to some Japanese podcasts, or listen to some Japanese music. That's another one. Just anything to get that language around you and in your life. So when I'm studying German, one of the things I like to do is I like to listen to some of the German artists, music artists. Mark Forster is one of my favorites. His music's really, really good, and it's entirely in German. Well, there's little bits and pieces in English, but 99% of it's in German, and it's just a lot of fun to listen to. And so having an option like that with German, Japanese, whichever, is just a really nice thing. One of the other things I've been doing is I still periodically come in, like I showed you guys before, is I got this book from the library, and I've been coming in here through my burnout and just kind of looking at the book. You can see it there a little bit. That's a little bit. But I've just kind of been coming in here and looking at it, and looking at the kanji in here and the hiragana and all that, and just kind of looking at it and reminding myself why I'm doing this, what my end goal is. And as well as I have gotten, so our trip to Disney World in December, I have it all booked and everything, and so that's one thing that I've got to look forward to, is now that's solidified. And so, as I'm going to say in every video, one of my major goals is I want to be conversational, at least slightly conversational, but by the time we go there in December, which is possible, I've seen it done. And so having that trip booked, and having us just working on just finishing paying it off now, it makes it kind of solidifies that in my mind, and cements that goal for me. It cements that kind of end goal. Is not, well, end-ish and near the end. So what one of the points I want to get across here is, don't be afraid of burnout. It's going to happen. You are going to get burnout. I mean, you're sitting down every day and you're studying this language, and you know nothing about this language. By this point, you'll know some about this language. You won't even necessarily be able to formulate your own sentences. I can formulate basic sentences at this point in Japanese. I can say things like like I like my car. I can say that. Watashi no kuruma daisuki desu. Well, I love my car. Watashi no kuruma suki desu would be I like my car. So I can formulate simple things like that. But at this point, most of what I'm learning is how the language is structured. And especially when you're at this part of it, when you're just heavily learning how it's structured, which for Asian languages, at least for me, the way that I learn, this is how I learn best. I learn when it's, structured. I want to learn how it's structured first, because it's just kind of how my brain works. I can then plug new words that I'm learning into those structures to make my own sentences. But when you're sitting down and just studying and studying and studying. It's kind of like being back in high school or college again. So you're studying and studying and studying, and what happened in high school? You didn't want to be there anymore. What's going to happen with language learning? If you keep doing this and keep doing it and keep doing it, especially when you're just learning the same thing, studying the same subject, rather, over and over and over again every day, it can feel kind of the way that high school or college did. And that's one of the reasons that you get burnt out. But don't be afraid of it. There are ways to get around it. Like I've kind of said, watch some anime or TV shows or whatever. Netflix has a great selection of TV shows in some other languages. Go watch some of those, or just do something else to get you excited about learning the language again. Go and watch some YouTube videos from somebody in that country. I have a YouTuber that I watch who's in Japan, and her whole channel is entirely in Japanese, except when she's talking to her English friends sometimes. But she, watching her, the stuff on her channel is another one of the ways that I like to try to get over my, mental, blockade that comes up. So there are ways to get around it. So there is no reason to be afraid of it. Just know it's better to know that you're going to get burnt out. It's better to have that knowledge and be ready for it, because if you're ready for it, then it's easier to get past it. I knew that burnout was going to happen, and I knew coming into this week with what was going on at work, I knew that this was probably one of the weeks that was going to happen, so I was ready for it. Doesn't mean it was easy, doesn't mean it was fun, because it was definitely not fun, but I was able to get through it. I still studied Japanese at least a little bit every day, whether through the videos or in the book. I still studied every day because I knew that was coming, and I knew that I was going to have to force myself to keep going. So, and that's really what it comes down to, is no matter how much, anime you watch or whatever to help with your burnout, what it really comes down to is your sheer desire to continue learning the language. If you hit that burnout point and you immediately give up and just stop studying, then that can be one of two things to me. One, it means that you really don't have that deep of a desire to actually learn that language. Or two, it could mean that maybe you just don't have desire to learn that specific language. Maybe it's just the wrong one for you. I guess it could be more than two things. But, so either language learning isn't for you, or that specific language isn't for you. And for me, I've hit that burnout point before. Most of that happened with German when I was learning German. I was only ever able to continue to learn German for about, I want to say 3 weeks straight, 2 to 3 weeks straight. And then I would just stop studying for a month or two. And then I would come back and be like, oh, I need to keep doing this. And then I would fall out again. In Japanese, that's happened twice. The first time was after about a month and a half. And then I didn't study again for a couple of months. A couple of months. And then it happened again the next time I started studying, and I studied for a couple more weeks, 3 or 4 more weeks, and then I fell off again. But it comes down to your desire. Why do you want to do this? If you keep that desire in mind, if you keep that goal in mind, like I said in the last video, if you keep that goal in mind, the burnout will go away. You will be able to push through. And so you just have to keep your eye on that goal. So that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about with this. Hopefully it's helpful for those of you that might be going through the same thing that I went through this week with the burnout. So hopefully I'll see you guys next week. So until then, don't forget to thank the Phoenicians.
Let's get some sun, baby, it's time to go.